Live. We live now. Let's go ahead and get it shared on Facebook. Make sure it's just straight. But yeah, we live. Yeah, I don't say nothing dumb. George, you on freestyle this time, bro?
Nah, man, I'm trying to send out this tweet still, man.
I appreciate it.
You know what I'm saying? We good now. The tweet sent it out. Man, shout out to everybody on Twitter too, man. I was got me some.
Yeah. Did you share the YouTube link?
Hey, call it.
Yeah, I just shared it on YouTube.
Hey, call it Indigenous/Nation, like Indigenation.
Yeah.
Indigenous, like for real, because we're talking about the whole country, like and how.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how to spell that. You gonna have to tell me how to spell that shit.
Indigent, IND.
Hold on. Let me share the video first. We got people coming in. I appreciate y'all joining us. Y'all know what to do. Say what's up as y'all come into the. We got a guest. You know what I'm saying? A great guest today.
Jackson. I put it in the private chat.
Okay, bet.
Yeah, I should be smooth with that.
Hey, get it shared. I'm about to put the YouTube and on my Facebook.
But Jalisa.
What's up, Jalisa? What's up, Jada? INDENDE.
See, you just need a little bit of time. You just need a little bit of time.
I know what that mean, man.
Hey, thank y'all for joining us. You know what I'm saying? We about to get it started soon. As y'all come in the building, we get it shared. We get all the information out. You know what I mean? We getting it in. Of course, wonderful information to spread with the people. Great conversation to be had.
Hey, do it like this too. If y'all already know, you know what I'm saying, how we get down, how we do. You already love it, how to chop up move. Go ahead and hit that love, hit that like real quick. Hit the care button. You know, get the little heart, wrap your arms around it. We like.
You know what I'm saying? Like, show niggas some love.
You know what I'm saying? Like we need it. What the world needs now is love.
Facts.
So show it to us with the post. Go ahead and love it. Go ahead and like it. Get comfortable. Get situated. We ain't gonna be too long, but we definitely got a couple of things we want to talk about tonight. And like we already pointed out, we got a guest, so it's about to get busy up in this thing.
Hey, we appreciate that nigga for being on here anyway, because that nigga on the East Coast. So it's kind of late. We still got some sunshine. You feel me?
About an hour or so of it.
You know what I'm saying? So, hey, as y'all come in, hey, show love, say what's up. We in here.
You see
Tiffany, big sister to the show, is in the building.
You see it.
You know what I'm saying?
We out here.
Yeah, you know, show love. Who bringing it in today? Who gonna get it in today?
AKA consciously, AKA don't forget to lead. George Lee, I'm doing it now. He got it.
Hey, man, let's get this thing going. Let's get this thing. I got things in the background. I feel like my lighting kind of but we're gonna get it going though, you know.
You good.
So yeah.
Don't be like that. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah, don't do it like that. Yeah, so I'm ready.
Hey, hold on, before we get started. Dr. Dancy being messy, bro.
I just said it.
What do you say?
Don't do it.
He said, "Oh, y'all got a guest. Y'all don't invite me." Listen, the chop up is an open platform. You know what I'm saying? We love all y'all.
Hey, and too, Dr. Dancy, man, I asked you to come on here. You hit me with the man. You don't do public like that. You know what I'm saying? You know?
Right.
You know what I mean? I definitely remember asking you coming like, Dr. Nancy, man, come on to the podcast. And you was definitely like, nah, George.
Dr. Nancy has expressed, you know, so we got to fix that. We definitely plan on switching up the platform a little bit. It'll always be us, but we will be having other people join us and participate in the conversation. So it's going to be a good time no matter what. And shoot, when your number is called, make sure you rise to the occasion and go ahead and chop it up with us here on the Chop Up. You know what I'm saying?
Really?
Shout out to Odie in the comments, you know, showing love. And showing love to the guests. I already know who it is. We about to go ahead and introduce him in a minute. And also shout out to here for the edutainment, the brand. Right. George Lee, go ahead and bring us in. It's official. Let's get it rocking.
So today is Quarantine Tuesday. You know, America is still on the lockdown, waiting on the apocalypse to happen. The Orange Man is still on his stuff. But listen, though, he was lost in the sauce and signs denial, but now he's coming back around. It's your boy, George Lee, a.k.a. Consciously. Don't forget the Lee. GeorgeLeeSpeaks.com. You know where you can find that merch and that book in there. You know who I'm with.
It's your girl Toya G coming to y'all real quick on this beautiful Tuesday night, just to share some knowledge and some info with y'all about what's happening around us. Y'all know how we do. I'm feeling good, feeling great. We in the middle of the summer. I've been teaching, been vibing, and now I'm ready to talk to y'all. So I'm happy to be here tonight.
What's good, man? It's your boy, the political plug. We in this mug looking like the Brady Bunch. You know what I'm saying? New format. But hey, it's all love. This the chop up. Y'all know how we get down. You know what I'm saying? Glad to be back in the building. Y'all know what it is.
And the other mystery square that is here, I want to go ahead and introduce this person. I'll let him share his voice with y'all in a second, but I do want to tell y'all a little bit about who this man here is.
Streets.
Joining us right here is a name that's been quoted, an organization that has been hyped and been centered and been just used as a great example of a lot of good things that we can be doing to further the missions, the goals, and the strategies that we have in our Black communities. Everybody, this is Adam Jackson. Adam is the Chief Executive Officer of Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle, housed and centered in Baltimore, Maryland. Been working for a long time. Mr. Jackson is responsible for the management and oversight of the daily operations of the organization and the execution of the mission to advance the public policy interest of Black people in Baltimore through youth leadership, development, political advocacy, and autonomous intellectual innovation. As a person who hails from Baltimore, very much anchored and centered in that community, doing a lot of work in the surrounding areas and really building great networks with people all around this country. So, Adam Jackson, what's good to you? Mr. Smart Black Man, right there. You see the ad at the bottom. What's up?
Now, first off, I appreciate that smooth ass intro. I need to have you do my intros for everything, all my everything, son. But I'm good, yo.
It's good to have you. It's good to have you. We definitely want to make sure that y'all realize that Adam is going to be here for a specific purpose, which is to chime in with the political chop, but also, he's here with it. You know what I'm saying? Brilliant, creative, just a masterful individual in terms of explaining, breaking down, and stuff like that. So he's going to be participating in a couple different parts of the conversation. Over to the political plug. You said you had a snap chop in mind. How we going to open this up real quick before we get to the meat and potatoes?
I did. We do got a snap chop lined up. And it's a very interesting thing that happened after we talked about intracommunal violence in our last episode. In today's snap chop, I want to follow up on that and how niggas still don't seem to get it. Gilly the Kid. Somebody posted some old information. For those that don't know, Gilly is a rapper out of Philly, but he has a name now as a podcaster. You know what I'm saying? That's the new thing to do. It's the new thing to do instead of going over to reality TV like the niggas with the one hit wonders do. The niggas that got a little clout, they start podcasts. You know what I'm saying? So Gilly is now a podcaster. He's somebody who's signed by Spotify, has some influence, and was called out about making some statements about Black Lives Matter, where he said specifically, Black lives didn't matter to the nigga that shot me. that was his reaction. Now, he came out and responded and said, that's old. That was some years ago. I support Black Lives Matter. But then again began to reiterate the same tired, played out response to Black Lives Matter, and that is Black lives need to matter to Black people.
Okay.
Now, George had a specific message for Gilly. You know what I'm saying? Let's get a preview of that message, bro.
Hey, peep game, Gilly. You like acronyms? I like acronyms, man. You say GAME stand for guidance, attention. You say guidance, attention, motivation, and education. So peep game, man. I'm about to give you some game on intracommunal violence and how when you use your platform in the way that you use it, you allow for them same white folks, you know what I'm saying, that you be talking shit about, that you say you claim Black Lives Matter for, you allow for them to copy and paste your message and literally weaponize it against niggas like me and Adam. When we get invited somewhere now, we gotta ask, you know what I'm saying, rapper Gilly the Kid says that does Black Lives Matter when the Black man shot him? What do you have to say about that? You know what I'm saying? And you know, I'm gonna get into more why that's a misnomer, but that's all I gotta say about it.
Now, yeah, stay tuned. Y'all know this nigga George is becoming famous for calling niggas out of
I wouldn't say famous, but you know.
You feel me? Like one of his more recent victims was Chef Roble. You feel me? Calling him out on his trans phobia. I think that's what it was considered on. That's what it was. You know what I'm saying? So you know, it's these celebrities is gonna learn. Somebody gotta hold niggas accountable. If you're gonna put yourself on a pedestal and say that you a voice for black people and you a voice for black people, if you niggas is sharing white supremacists, white nationalists, white racist, suburb mom talking points, you a problem. And we're gonna let you know that. You know what I'm saying? So
Georgia,
you want to chime in? Do you want to chime in, Adam?
Videos. I mean, my only chime in is again, and I think I use this quote, and I think this is a decent litmus test for a lot of how we navigate our perspectives, how we speak to ourselves, while how we speak to each other. Is you are usually running into trouble if a lot of your talking points are the same talking points as the same white people that you are attempting to delegitimize in other contexts or other areas of the conversation. So don't pull us a little bit closer and try to condescend to us in the same ways and using the same language, rhetoric, and logic that white people use to condemn us and to subjugate us and to exclude us from the things that we need in the first place. And when I talk about the things that we need, I'm talking about the blatant ignorance for structural and social violence and how we got there in the first. Like, when do we really have those types of conversations, or do we just pretend that niggas got gun factories and that they're making guns and passing them out and selling them at low prices? That's not how gun violence works. That's not how drugs work. That's not how the influx of drugs at least work, right? The introduction of it into our communities, into our capabilities, into what we thought or saw as a viable option for survivability in our communities. Thus, you know what I'm saying? Like, so let's have the breakdown, and until you're doing that work, I'm not doing it with you. You know what I'm saying? That's a whole lot of my strategy for being like, yeah, I'm good. It's just like, you sound like a white person.
Adam, let me frame it like for you like this specifically, because like George was saying, he making it harder on niggas like y'all. And now in context, what he's saying y'all is like niggas who are out here actually engaging the motherfuckers that's actively pushing these narratives. So in terms of being like as a nigga on the front line, when you see niggas that's supposed to be on your side speaking like that, what does that spark for you?
But you know what's interesting about it, because there's a lot of black people that say stuff like that, especially around when you're doing like advocacy work. Because when you start talking about police violence and you live in a black city, all of us grew up in black cities, and we know that the murder rate's high. Black people usually kill each other. There's intercommunal violence. But when you look at the stats in any other community, intercommunal violence is pretty regular in America because everything is hyper segregated. And so when people say stuff like, what about black people killing each other? The problem is that, well, there's not too many conversations or opportunities to engage what it means for what things cause intercommunal violence to begin with. And I think that it's much easier to start with that, because that's the trope, like you said, Toya, that's the trope that white people use. So at the end of the day, when we're advocating for things to change that dynamic, when people are kind of using it as the rebuttal, at the end of the day, it's like, well, what are you putting in place to stop that from happening to begin with? And people don't want to have that conversation. People don't want to build structures. People don't want to build systems. People don't want to create programs. People want to just talk shit about black people because it's the best. It's the most accessible anti-black trope.
It's the easier conversation to have.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So it's like and until you can't be like, we got to do more. We got to think beyond this. And you can't. A lot of people will couple these conversations with, here's what you got to think about. Why are black people killing? Like they said something profound, and it's like you still.
You just said some of the most elementary shit,
right?
And you sitting and you looking at us like, nigga, you just broke it down. Like what? It's easy to be critical of black people. Go ahead, Adam.
But you do know what's interesting is that what I do think is important, because those are black. I mean, that's how a lot of black people feel. And I think one of the shortcomings of what people are calling Black Lives Matter is that there are like grandmothers who like live in poor and working class communities. When they see those marches, like they're like, all right, I feel you. Like black people shouldn't get killed by police. I understand, but I'm saying though, like I'm trying to live, and these Negroes is outside shooting. It's like, I want to feel you, but how do I? And other black people our age feel the same way. So I think there's a response, but the response is that we, like you said, we didn't cause it. We didn't create the conditions. White supremacy did. So how do we disrupt the conditions so that way we can fight back against that narrative. You feel
and
what I'm
it's
saying?
also important to remember that when we're talking about niggas, it's a lot of niggas. It's a lot of different types of niggas.
Yeah,
and so
I
I think Leah pointed out last time was the same niggas screaming Black Lives Matter is probably not the same niggas robbing you and do like we are. It's not
the same niggas, man.
There could be some overlap, but there's some differences. What's that? My bad.
No, say it's a panoply of niggas.
You know, one of my favorite ones is a cornucopia. You know what I'm saying? It's a plethora of
you got a bunch of niggas that always get bunched up, and then whatever one in the bunch do, everybody got to be held accountable and responsible for everything. And I think that's to me. I think when it comes to the trope of the pathology of black on black crime, I feel like a lot of us don't really know the history of where the word come from and don't recognize that if you just did like a simple ass Google search, you know what I'm saying? Or just like, really you can just damn near Google search black on black crime. It's going to be a couple of things that tell you about intracommunal violence and about how if you live in the hood, you eating this, man. If I'm eating sleep for dinner, it's more than likely that I'm going to kill somebody that's next door to me because I'm not going to go across town to commit a crime because I'm broke. You feel
That's it.
And I mean, the way anti-blackness work, before you get over there to commit the crime, you done be done caught. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not. I haven't done anything wrong yet.
They pulled you over before that because, like, nigga, you're not supposed to be.
You ain't supposed to be up there anyways.
Hey, please call over to the side for me real quick.
What?
Like, what's your name? I know everybody in this community. I ain't never seen you. Like, I've seen the videos. But look, I'll say this, and then we can move on to the political chop.
Yeah.
The issue that I have with the way that people frame it in terms of Black lives have to matter. So specifically, like what Gilly's saying, Black lives didn't matter to the nigga that shot me. Of course, that's true, right? At least your life didn't matter to that that nigga.
In that moment.
But what needs to be understood is that there are advocacy groups that are in the streets responding to these types of violence as well. Black Lives Matter is a specific movement that's more so has to do with the way institutions respond to Black death. People are in communities getting their shit together. Decrease the violence, increase the peace. They've been saying that shit since the 80s. It's the late 80s. You feel me? Like we've had
mothers against gun violence, kids against gun violence, grandparents, teachers against
ceasefire.
You know what I'm saying? When do you have them on your show?
Like the mini Juneteenth block parties. That's where they raise money and where they talk to the community, where they attempt to bring the community together to stop the bullshit. How many peace treaties between the Bloods and Crips have there been? Like niggas is doing this work. You feel me? Like we doing this work. So it's like George is gonna get more into it. You feel me? Like when
I'm saving the rap.
So we ain't gonna give up all the game. But like, hey, niggas like Gilly, niggas with these platforms, watch y'all mouth when y'all talk about our people, bro. When y'all talking about Black people, put some respect on our name, bro. Know what it is. You feel me? You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's that. Let's go ahead and get into that political chop to you.
All right. This evening, usually Dominique does a political chop, but I wanted to slide in there and participate a little bit, especially since
I ain't did a political chop in a minute too.
Well, you are the political plug, and so I'm not trying to step on any toes. Okay, stay in my lane and make sure I keep my eyes on the road ad. That being said, I definitely want to use this opportunity. One thing I'm very interested right now, even for my own sake and the sake of a lot of people that I see on social media, a lot of people I'm having a conversation with, is how do we keep the momentum going, right? If I had to name this segment anything for the political chop, it would be keep that same energy. I think that's because that has been a mantra for our generation. And I also think it has become a necessary component of what we're trying to do to get this thing across a lot of roadblocks, blocks and humps and bumps into the next level of what it's supposed to look like. The question of the last week and a half in our community, if you will, and y'all tell me if y'all disagree or agree with this, but I think the most poignant question Black folks have been trying to answer for the last 7 or 8 days is what is entanglement?
No.
And I think that starts to be troubling. Right? And so when I think about the fact that Will and Jada in August have seemed to have captivated, and a whole bunch of other things in small ways, but have captivated our conversations and our timelines. And I've been guilty, and I posted a meme on my story and this, that, and the other. I really look at where we fallen. I saw a tweet that was very startling to me that said something to the extent that this Justice for Breonna situation is feeling very flinty. right? In the sense that now it's like it's been 180 days, it's been this many days, and so it's in the backdrop of a lot of our conversations, but it's not, or at least it doesn't feel as prominent as something. It's something that we end up being notified about and remembering. But what are we doing and how are we acting? And with that same energy, right, that we've seen with George Floyd and that we've seen in other areas. And so I want to look at and talk about how we sustain movements and what that means for you in a world where sometimes, you know, at this point, I've signed a lot of petitions. I've given the money that I do have. I have these social media posts, right? And for those people listening to this in retroact, I just kind of held my hands up.
That's for the podcast people. That's for the podcast.
That's what I'm starting to feel. You know what I'm saying? I'm all the way in Orange County, California. I live in Buena Park, a city a lot of people ain't never even heard of. And
where Disneywood land is
we're next door to Disneyland and down the street from Knott's Berry Farm. But what does that mean to Breonna Taylor? What does that mean to the city of Louisville? What does that mean to Black people and fed up people? Because we've seen a lot of different things coming out of this particular movement in relationship to how we sustain and keep our energy. Because I was pissed and I was hurt and I'm mad now. 5 years since Sandra Bland just passed yesterday, and I'm sick of being mad. Right, but I don't know how to sustain. So what have you all been seeing? What are you thinking, Adam, for your position as, you know what I'm saying, the CEO of Leaders of Beautiful Struggle, as another Black man contributing to these conversations and maybe feeling similar? What are y'all seeing about how to sustain this movement and take it to the next step or the next level?
Yeah, I think Adam, you go ahead and start it off, Adam, because like I said, you in the streets for real. So it's like, you know, because you somebody who sees the social media shit, but then also see like when the bodies show up a lot and then when they start to disperse. You know what I'm saying? And you still there. So from that perspective, you know what I'm saying? Go ahead and let niggas know what you been
seeing on some insight.
I mean, you know, what's interesting about you know, our generation is that because a lot of us, you know, a lot of these events like, you know, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, you know, Freddie Gray, Trayvon Martin, Mike Brown, a lot of us came of age in a moment where, you know, we really saw a transition from how these things would typically occur to like how like now it's all in the focus of social media and corporate media. And so I think there's two major things that's been going on that I think has really contributed to that feeling you're talking about, Toya. Because one will be the 24-hour media cycle, the 24-hour corporate media cycle. Now that dynamic you explained about, you know, we kind of go through the ebb and flow. We start talking about, you know, someone like it's the same thing. Black person gets killed by the police. Black person killed by a white person. Starts with the outrage, the social media outcry. Then after the outcry, we raise money. We do protests. The protests happen. The prosecutor, the mayor, they come out and they say we're going to press charges. The charges.
Somebody hires Benjamin Crump.
Somebody hires his ass. And
it's an important part of the process of what we go
through. But see, and it's not to say that, not to disparage him, because that's not part of the process.
Not at all.
But after, you know, he gets hired, then we're told to be patient, because when they get hired and then the court case starts, the criminal cases, the civil cases start, and then when those cases go through and they don't get justice, then we react again. But by that time, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 other Black people have been killed by police. And then we have our energy, you know, so it's the 24-hour media cycle. And that started really, if I could pinpoint it, I would say it started back during Trayvon Martin's case.
We were together. At least me, you, and George were.
Definitely were. In Baltimore. We was in Baltimore at Morgan State eating crabs.
Absolutely, yeah. And see, the thing is, I think that was the moment that white people realized that they could make money off of Black death and the corporate media, because when they saw the ratings, they saw that Black people watched when he got killed. They watched when during the trial. They watched when he was found not guilty. They watched after the fact when he was saying all that racist stuff on Twitter and social media. So they figured out.
Oh yeah, they figured out how to invite us as guests. We will tune in to Rachel. We'll tune in to George Zimmerman's wife.
Exactly. So that's one very big component of it. It's a contributing factor because the white people have created a formula to make money off of our death and suffering. Even all those different things you described, like they know at a granular level how Black people will react because they control so much of the media. And even in a broader context, you know, they control every platform that we engage on. They own Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, every corporate media channel. So they are literally controlling the conversation at a meta level, at a much higher level. And so we think we're reacting, we think it's organic, but in reality, white folks control it. And so the second part really comes down to how do we take that energy and transfer it into grassroots political change? Because people don't really understand that part. People think that grassroots political change is a movie. People think it's like, yeah, you feel me? Like I stood in the street, I took my perfectly poised activism photo in the middle of the street next to the police. Let me tell you something. I done got tear gas for the first time this year. Hey, that shit ain't cute. That shit ain't cute at all.
Oh man,
Yeah,
I can only imagine.
and just to chime in real quick, Adam, it's like what you saying, bro. It's because it's also the social media generation, and I want to take the pictures. I want to be seen, and that energy that's created, that becomes like the feel good. You feel me? Like, man, we did it. Because I heard it. Like being out here in LA, you hear. I heard people talking about just like, I feel the change. Like I saw people marching and I saw things, so I feel better about the shit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not it. Like,
not at all.
Yeah.
I mean, white people love doing them some arts and crafts on the fucking street. Let me tell you about that. Like, because people they painting the damn streets with black. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. You feel me? But it gets to a point where it's like, all right, yo, I want police accountability, meaning that local and state legislation needs to be passed so I can see the personnel file. It means that residents can hold these police accountable, but you gonna give me some fucking arts and crafts, some Starbucks slogans. You're gonna give me all the platitudes.
No, the worst thing you can give me is these pictures and these photo ops where we're together and you got the nerve to put up a fist like that.
Right.
Because I know, when I see stuff,
I call it
kind of like when I hear songs. I'm gonna tell y'all, like when I hear a Migos song and I hear some crazy ad libs, and I'm like, man, I wish I could have been in the studio when them niggas was picking it up. Like, who told you this? What made you? I think about it in the same context of how they go out with these performative kind of this engagement. I know they sitting in the precinct in their little rooms, like, okay, and couple y'all take couple pictures with them, get down on
this. Oh yeah, they Kitsy Clough and the kill these niggas. Watch this Kitsy Clough on his knee.
How many times do we see on Twitter where 1 minute the picture get taken and then somebody will post and then 10 minutes after that they beat our ass? You know what I'm saying? Like, exactly. It hurt my heart. It hurts my heart every time to see that because I'm like, y'all falling for it. I would never take a picture. I can't. And I thought about it because I'm out here in Orange County fooling around. You know, they was in the end. Good job. It's just real kind of hippity dippity. We're not the conservatives that they want to paint. It was very weird. And I was like,
yeah, I want to let the chat get in on this. I think Jada made excellent point. So she pointed out getting shot on BLM Street, right? Black Lives Matter Street. Like every hood has MLK already. That's all, nigga. You looking for weed? You go to MLK. You know what I'm saying? Like you looking for you trying to find some. You just want to be around niggas. Go to MLK Boulevard. You feel me? You gonna run into something. So we know that these efforts, these platitudes. You know what I'm saying? This performance, this liberal performance art, as George says, we know that this shit is fruitless. You know what I mean? It's toothless. It don't come with no type of substance. It don't come with no type of real, you know what I'm saying, accountability. Like, I mean, because we've all seen the tweets where a motherfucker was like, yeah, we want police accountability. And they was like, we're going to give y'all Juneteenth. Nah, we want police accountability. Nah, we're going to make, you know what I'm saying, Black Lives Matter on the cable TV network. We want police accountability. Nah, we're going to stop calling them master bedrooms. Like, what the fuck? Like, when I seen the master bedroom shit, like, in the paper, I'm like, so what? Like, out of all, like, I'm the type of nigga, I'm gonna point out all the racist shit. You racist, that's racist. The master bedroom shit was the shit that bothered me the least.
Hey, is anybody out of Adam and Toya, did that master bedroom shit bother y'all like that?
No.
Nah.
And this is, and look,
you know what bothers me? Racism.
Yeah.
That bothers me. I don't get shit. I don't get it.
And this is for people who made they living. Like, we doing what we doing now off of calling shit racist. And out of all the you racist son of a master bedroom was never a part of that you know what I'm saying, that impact calculus. I never really.
What are we gonna call it now?
You know what I'm saying?
The main bedroom.
The main bedroom.
You stupid, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna holler at Dr. Dancy's comment, and then I wanna ask Adam something about what he just said. Dr. Dancy said it's also intentionally deceptive. The same people holding a fist are still deploying police and calling for the National Guard, right? I talk about all the time. You know, we talking about the big P's, but let's talk about the little P's too. You know what I'm saying? Because you out here, you know, on Black Lives Matter Boulevard doing this, that, and the other, and protesting with the people, and you got your babies out here part of the protest and all that. Not all that's great, right? Join in and participate. Just make sure you're not turning into the little lower capital P. I'm sorry, lowercase p police in your classrooms and at your job and in your emergency rooms.
But they are.
You know what I'm saying? In your HR department, like that's where you really need to be concerned with how you moving. And so the deception is very muchly embedded in these movements, which is why we've got to ask ourselves what really it takes for us to sustain and push past these optics, right? Because a lot of this is optics. And so going back to something that Adam talked about in terms of grassroots organizing and how we kind of have to build a better, healthier relationship with that and get past these photo ops and get past these feel good moments. We see organizations like Black Lives Matter, right, that have really been strong and powerful and prominent and trying to lift us and push us to the next level of things like police brutality and structural violence and police accountability and things like that. But we start to see, I won't say a splintering, but other smaller organizations that start to rise even on a national level to really take that mission a step further. Adam and I were talking about movement for Black Lives, and I think he can probably give a whole lot more context for that. But I want to Adam shift a little bit to grassroots, what that looks like on a federal level, or what people are trying to start to get mobilizing on a federal level, and kind of the advantages and the missteps of those shifts. So talk to us a little bit about movement for Black Lives and what they've been up to.
Because we got to reiterate, this nigga is really in the streets.
Shout out to leaders of the beautiful struggle and everybody down and be more.
You know what I'm saying? Like this is. I mean, I'm gonna let my man speak, but like let's be real. You feel me? It's so many people who, like, especially when it comes to social media, that really just do a lot of talking. This nigga really about that life.
Right. So Adam, school us. Movements for Black Lives. What is it? What does it do? What's your perception and perspective of it as it exists for police accountability?
So, I mean, you know, it's probably, for the benefit of people watching, it's probably good to start with just kind of meta at the national level, like what people call Black Lives Matter and Movement for Black Lives. Like there are formal networks. These are formal organizations. But Black Lives Matter, you know, it has chapters. You know, it has, you know, people that are employed by it, the formal network. But then there's the larger social phenomenon that people are calling Black Lives Matter, and the Movement for Black Lives is like a large collection of organizations and leaders and groups that are part of this a national effort that have a certain set of values and core values and understandings that they adhere to. But when people, you know, I think it's important that people understand, you know, at the national level, when you talk about police accountability and law enforcement accountability, there is no federal law that can be passed that will hold police accountable. Like President Trump or the Congress, like if they pass a law, like the things that Black people want, like Black people want the ability to send police to prison. Black people want the ability to hold police accountable by seeing their personnel files, by making sure that in their city, in their municipality, like in Baltimore, Kansas City, and Bryan, anywhere else, if you are in your city, that you can actually hold them accountable. There is no federal control over the police. And I think one of the mistakes that's been made, it's not an unintentional mistake, because white liberals like to confuse Black folks, is that they say, well, we need to go to the federal level and tell your congressperson, but like literally they can't pass a law to do that. And so the only way you can do that is if you do it at a local state, at the state and local level. And I'll give you an example of how this plays itself out in Maryland. Mm-hmm. So in Maryland, we have something called the Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights, LEOBR. Maryland is probably one of 16 other states that actually have this law in the books. It was a law put in place in 1974. And this law makes it so that police officers and other law enforcement officials in Maryland have certain rights above regular, ordinary citizens. An example of that, before it got reformed a little, like we reformed it a little bit, but back in 2015, when we were advocating for it to change, if a law enforcement official walked in my house right now and shot me in the face, that means they would have 10 days before they would actually have to give a statement to other law enforcement. Now, if I go in your house and shoot you in the face, I go to jail. I have to give a statement. I'm in prison.
And evoking my Fifth Amendment right is demonstrating my guilt.
Exactly. But law enforcement, they don't have the same. They're not even held to the same standard. And so you can't change that law by going to Donald Trump or the Congress, but you have to actually go to your state legislators and your governor, and you have to get them to change it. But I think people, they confuse the activism, the what do you call the protests and the demonstrations with
the pageantry.
The pageantry.
The pageantry, that the pageantry with actual work, because it's not like useless. The problem is it's not attached to anything, and it's not attached to anything that can get specific things done. And I think one of the things that we've been trying to focus on is how to make sure that people understand, like, yo, you can do all that, like that's cool. But white folks, their tactic is they'll let you cuss them out and scream and let you say whatever you want to them. They'll let you throw shit at the police. They'll let you do all of that. But you're not a threat until you start talking about what I just talked about, and you start actually naming the people, the white people, the real white people. Like Donald Trump is not the real white people. There's the real white people, and then there's people like Donald Trump and other folks. But when you start really calling out those people in positions of power, like the Fraternal Order of Police, the police unions, you start calling them out, like those motherfuckers are not only, they're not only super racist, but they're the kind of racist that you think they are. Like they're the folks that are from like southern states, and they're the folks that actually like our Fraternal Order of Police in Baltimore. They constantly tweet racist stuff, and they say racist, anti-black stuff every day, but no one says anything to the police.
But you know what I thought? You know what I think is interesting about that though, Adam, is that, and we had this conversation on the Chop Up too, I think, when boy, it was like when after the George Floyd shit popped off, you had and the mayor came out specifically saying like that was murder, like he murdered him, like he did, like that was wrong. You feel me? We're against that officer. Typically, what you see is the whether it's the Fraternal Order of Police, the police union, whatever police interest group stepping up to say that's inappropriate. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not okay. They're against the police. And it was odd how silent the Minnesota Minneapolis police union was in response to what the mayor was saying and being blatant and explicit in condemning the actions of the officer. And I mean, they were so quiet that the fucking New York police union put out a statement. I know y'all seen that shit when the dude was like, you go out here and deal with these criminals. You have to deal with these people, right? Like the nigga was chastising the media, and it's like, nigga, this ain't even. We literally ain't even talking about the fact that y'all choked the nigga out and then arrested and put in jail the nigga that recorded the nigga getting choked out. We ain't even talking about that right now. We talking about the fact that in another city,
another state,
like they just leaned on this nigga neck to where he died, and all the officers stood there with their hands in their pockets. You don't even need to get yourself involved with this. You know what I'm saying? And it just shows like the mindset of the people who put themselves in this order. That like the policeman is always right. The policeman is just so important that they got to stop these criminals. Nigga, if you see your job as stopping criminals, you should not be a fucking police officer. Period.
That's real. And I think that to your point though, it's actually not crazy. As messed up as it sounds, it's not crazy because the kind of shit. I mean, I tell you a story. When we went to Annapolis, the state capital here in Maryland, that's where the state legislative assembly is. That's when you got to go to change state laws or whatever. We went up there to change the law enforcement bill of rights one year. I think it was in 2016. And we went up there to testify. We're doing what people tell us to do. We go to the legislators. We go say what we want. We are going to testify in support of bills that we think are good for our community. And the Fraternal Order of Police, they in the hearing room, they got every law enforcement official they could from around the state of Maryland to come to the hearing room and to sit in all the seats and to stand around in full uniform to intimidate us the entire time we were there. And there wasn't no cameras. There wasn't nothing to tweet about. It was like, oh nah, you ain't. It's not going down. Like, and it's like they make it a point to show that they have a show of force because they want to make sure that like, no, we're the police. Like we are given the right by the state to kill you if we feel like it's necessary. And in addition to that, the messed up thing about the Fraternal Order of Police that most people don't realize. The Fraternal Order of Police is a union. So a portion of my check that I get from the state, the city or the state goes to it. So it's essentially a publicly funded lobbying organization. And so as a person that pays taxes, I should be able to tell them what the hell they can and can't do. But they get to just do that kind of stuff consistently. And Black folks, where we get messed up, we're so focused on Donald Trump and the conversation about Joe Biden, like all this kind of like national stuff, when in reality, all the actual changes that Black people want, it happens at a grassroots level, and you got to do that in your city and state. And that's the thing. Black people, like the kind of activists, quote unquote, that we're producing are people that are really just it's all performance art, or it's catharsis. It's like, I want to be able to sit in front of the tank and throw my fist up. Let me tell you something. I was when I like the other day, what was it, like 3-4 weeks ago, we were in front of like SWAT, Baltimore City police officers, and they had their guns aimed at us and they threw tear gas in front of us. I got asthma, nigga. I can't sit in front of tear gas for too long. I'm sitting in front.
And too, I know knowing a few things about surveillance too. I know knowing a few things about surveillance. Everybody that got caught up in the Instagram, social media stuff is like,
they all got arrested.
Now only got arrested, come up missing, you know what I'm saying, all type of things. So I think that a lot of people they got caught up in running for them likes and them views and them shares and them friend requests and the new followers. And I feel like, you know what I'm saying, we got to see how even the policing apparatus got to even use that against you.
Yo, I mean, you ain't lying. Yo, we got in Baltimore, we got this surveillance plane, yo. We got 3 planes that fly over Baltimore 40 hours a week, recording every last move of everybody in Baltimore, which means, and they also got a city watch system, meaning they got cameras at not only at every mass transit terminal, but every major thoroughfare in the city, meaning they're recording our actions 24/7. So if they wanted to follow my Black ass, target me, and know my behavior every day of the week as an advocate or as a person that's working with other Black people, they can. And so it's like but it's like people are so caught up in the moment. It's like, yo, you do realize, like, I know the police follow me. I know they probably gotta follow me. I know they probably tap my phone. I don't give a shit. I don't care. I don't give a fuck. They probably looking at this shit now. And fuck
like, right. Niggas ain't like
all 4 of us together in one spot. Yeah, all 4 of us in one spot. Yeah. Man. We all be. I feel like all of us that be loud and one way or another on social media, that be bouncing around different cities around the country. Yeah. I'm pretty sure we all got a little file, and because we be together, it make that file even a little more juicier. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to your CIA, FBI.
That's what I'm saying. Shout out to my agent. I hope y'all enjoy.
What Malcolm say? He was like, "Hey, I'm glad all y'all came out. All y'all friends, all y'all loved ones.
Get your Race Hustle t-shirt.
Yo, you in this hoe? Like, we know y'all in here. You feel me?
I want to mention Dr. Dancy's comment, and then Adam and everybody, I want to kind of posit one more thing to you before we close this out and move to the next little conversation piece. Dr. Dancy says, as James Baldwin said, the police's job is to protect white property interests, and they have no other function. So the fraternal order of the police sounds like a headquarters, right? It sounds like very muchly a not self-aggrandized, appointed, kind of deputized, overly deputized institution, right? More so than what might meet the eye. Like, yeah, they're the police, but very muchly in the ways that Adam influenced. They're what did you call them? A political, they're
public lobbyists.
Yeah, they're public funded. They're essentially a public funded lobbying organization.
And when we talk about movement sustainability, it's really recognizing how these nooks and crannies start to work together more than just they out there on the corner with a baton and a gun and some pepper spray or whatever. Like, there are people who are specifically dispatched. There are detectives. There are officers. I mean, just up and down, right? Different ranks within this particular organization that do the institutional work, do the day-to-day, from building relationships in communities. Just because they don't have relationships with you in your community don't mean they're not building relationships on their beat in your community, right? So that politicization of it, the politicization of policing is happening in so many different ways and with so many different contours than I think we even understand, which is why we got to put in with how they act and function as lobbying groups in our communities. Justine says, yeah, you'll throw their hands up in the air and then so quick to do all that, and then they quick to say you are a threat or just support or protect each other no matter what. And so I almost feel like we've got to take examples from our enemies, right? From our opposition, and really start to stand together on a community level in a lot of ways, the same way they do. Right. And so I think the way I want to pivot out to start to round out this conversation is a lot of the language of police accountability, even on a local level, has been abolition. Adam, do you feel like, I think it's a 2-part question to everybody else. Do you feel like abolish the police is the right rhetoric, the right logic, the right orientation that we have? Has that been the agenda all along? And if so, what are your suggestions for people in their own cities who are not in Baltimore, but are in the LAs, in the Oklahoma cities, or near them, in the Normans, and whatever? What does that start to mean for us on a more material basis that allows for us to keep that same energy and sustain the momentum?
Got you. I mean, I'm gonna keep it 100 with you. So my answer to that question of abolition, I actually go beyond. I would actually go beyond that. As a Pan-Africanist, I don't believe in America. I don't believe anything this country has ever produced. I don't believe this nation will produce justice for Black people. So I believe that the destruction of America is what needs to happen, as in its current form, to produce a more just world for our people.
And this is why they watching us, y'all.
I mean, that's the real. That's the real. So
I mean, because there's nobody here was like, well, Adam, we like hell yeah, preach that shit. Say that shit. You feel me? Because we straight up agree. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So there's that part of it. So if you're asking me how I feel, I mean, and they even take it a step further. If I thought that armed struggle would work, then I would do it. Problem is that we're behind enemy lines.
Yeah.
We don't have we're outgunned, we're outmanned. Yes. So it doesn't make sense to put Black people's lives on the line, telling them to, but I just want to say that
to sacrifice themselves, to just throw themselves at the feet. Like, yeah, you can't.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this. Let me ask you this.
I got one more question too, but go ahead. Ask
Yeah. Let me ask you this, Adam. In terms of, because let me say this first. In terms of, niggas talk about defunding the police and doing all this shit. What we notice is that if you just take away their ability to just do whatever the fuck they want, they quit anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, what happened in Atlanta when they was like, yeah, nah, you niggas can't do that shit. And they was like, well, fuck it, we not gonna do our job. Okay, cool. Like, they just make it easy for us, nigga. Cool. So it's like, what it and also so in that same lane, I know y'all got the I know you said y'all had the law enforcement officers Bill of Rights, right? What's your perception on like how we should orient ourselves in terms of like pushing movements to challenge or to hold officers accountable with qualified immunity and how that works?
Well, so there's a few levels to it. So I think there's to the first part of the question though about the abolition and defunding the police, the issue is that most Black people have never really seen an alternative to the police. So if you had to ask the average Black person, do you want more police or less police? Most Black people would say more police because it's like, what are the other options? And so the issue isn't so much the rhetoric. The problem is that people that are espousing abolish the police and defund the police have never been made responsible for creating the alternatives that actually meet the need of public safety. So that is what our community needs to do. Now, in Baltimore, we have a couple of alternatives. Like we have Baltimore Ceasefire, which is a grassroots community effort to stop intercommunal violence. And then you also got Safe Streets Baltimore, which is a grassroots effort with people who used to be incarcerated. They came out and they're employed now to intervene directly in conflict. And so those are things that's like, if you want to talk about defunding the police, I mean, sure, you wouldn't. I mean, if there's a $500 million police department, like, yeah, I don't think it makes sense today to just take $500 million today and put it into something else tomorrow, because anybody that's responsible for building things knows that you can't build things that way. Structural problems require structural approaches. So you can't build a new structure in a day. You got to actually create the context and the schematic for what it's going to be, and then
have like an infrastructure.
Yeah, you gotta have a blueprint, plan, you know what I'm saying, some conditions, some practices over time that's able to bring up to the structure and all that,
I mean, it's almost the state of white supremacy and anti-Blackness is like a callus, right? You get calluses from reworking that same spot over and over and stick. You know what I'm saying? It's going to take some peeling, some work, and some kind of maneuvering probably to get down beneath the layers, right? They end up thicker in some places than the others. That's why we can kumbaya it out and have, relationships with white people, and white people be anti-racist and do a lot of the work and stand alongside, but that's still not quite enough. Niggas still have to get on the same page about some stuff to cut through another layer of it, right? This is why we can't get excited about the ceremonialization of us marching and walking together without starting to still have that intra conversation. All right, niggas, what are we doing? You know what I'm saying? That's a part of those thicker layers that we still got to kind of work through. That set it up. The fracturing of Black people as we move together is part of how we got here too. You know what I'm saying? We got to
exactly. And the last part of that though is that Black people. I mean, the simple answer to the question of how we move forward and sustain our movements, though, we need power. We need power. We need resources. Point blank. If you ain't independently wealthy, one of my Babas here in Baltimore, Baba Adamola, he's like 70 plus years old. And the first thing he asked me when we were having a meeting for the first time talking about electoral politics, and we were all whatever, like, yeah, we need to change the system. First question he asked me was, are you independently wealthy? I said, nah. He said, all right, well, nigga, what do you have? What are you talking about? I was like, well, and at first I thought, like, yo, what you mean? What you mean?
Right, I'm putting in the work. What you talking about?
But he was like, but his point was simple. He's like, the only way that you can actually create change that's sustainable, you need to create the infrastructure, you need to resource it, and you need to make sure that you can carry it out beyond your words. And most Black folks that are younger, like particularly the millennial generation, people who are calling themselves millennials and the Generation Zers or what have you, like, we don't think about power that way. We don't think about wielding power because you can't just think about being anti-white supremacy. You have to be pro-Black power, pro
right, yo,
nation building. Because if you're not nation building, you just talking a bunch of shit. You're doing a whole bunch of, yeah, we know what we need to do, brother. But it's like, yeah, if you have to build an institution, and then you have to actually be accountable for what you say.
And bro, the unlearning it takes to like trust Black people as Black people again, the unlearning it takes to invest in Black people and to deny yourself a lot of the luxuries that white supremacy and their pride, like that
is we conditioned.
That's where it hurts, right? We talk about like the lighter work versus the hard work. You know what I'm saying? The easy work is taking these pictures and doing whatever. The hard work for the police to do is
that's it.
Black people. It's the same thing with niggas. Like the easy work is to be like, white people are terrible, nigga.
Yeah, that's the and that's what I be telling you. And we can round it out. And I'll say this to you. And we could get to this nigga George.
Yeah.
These niggas think that just this all we need to do is say be against whitey. And I didn't like, nah, if you ain't about building, like movements ain't about what you're against. Movements are about what it is that you're trying to move toward. Like, what are you trying to create? And if your movement is couched in challenging and calling out and being critical of, you know what I mean?
And that's where it starts and ends at. Then
you just an antagonist. It's not a movement. You just antagonizing some shit, which is necessary. We need antagonists, but I mean, you useless when you can't move beyond being an antagonist.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it. And you got to build power, because the thing is, but we're not used to being responsible stewards of power, and we're so used to being able to read the books. Let me tell you something. Like reading about Black liberation is much different when you actually have to put that shit into action, and it's not sexy at all. There's a lot of shit that I don't want ever to be posted on Instagram and Facebook. Because when I was talking about me and Davon and a bunch of other folks 10 years ago were talking about this stuff, it'd be like, like whatever. And I spent most of my energy being broke, building relationships with people in community, and doing things that matter of fact, just in the past 2 days, two of my mentors who were my elders, they passed away. Miss Avis Ransom and this brother, George Mitchell. George Mitchell, for 5 years, 5 years ago, he actually built a community center in West Baltimore and Park Heights. My man, he's known in the Baltimore area, but when he asked us to help him, he was just like, I need to get this school building. I'm trying to build out this programming. And we just did it for him because that's what we wanted to do. It was for the love, but wasn't a whole bunch of, I'm out here with my man, out here building. It's like, no, when you nation building, you do that because that's what's necessary for the people, for the community. You ain't doing it because it's cool. You know what I'm saying? I think we don't have that frame of mind because we're listening to what white people tell us. We're watching the white corporate media on social media, comparing what we think we should be doing to what white folks tell us. And then when we're confused at the end of the day, we still end up with the same shit. But when you actually are a threat, that's when you're going to know a difference when you actually a threat. Because white folks talk to you and treat you different when you actually a threat. They'll let you talk shit to the end of time. When you start talking about where money go and you start talking about how these institutions are constructed, they'll treat your ass different.
Yeah, they gave Martin Luther King a holiday. Why did they shoot that nigga?
Right.
Well, see, Shout out to tell me he was gonna conversation. Definitely appreciate everybody in the comments keeping it live, and talking about really what we can be saying and what we can be doing. If you want to listen more to what Adam is talking about, more about what LBS is talking about, and more about how on a very local, grassroots, real, every single day in and day level out change is happening in Baltimore, and how you can start catalyzing it happen in your area. I want you to invite you all to follow Adam at Smart Black Man on pretty much all social media, and lbsbaltimore.com. lbsbaltimore.com is the website you can go to learn more about Adam, learn more about Davon, learn more about Lawrence, learn more about everybody, Breon, all of the amazing people who are working with LBS. And I know I'm leaving some names off, but shout out to everybody who has been working for a decade plus now, really threading together a lot of beautiful things that didn't even just start at the Baltimore Uprising. I know y'all remember Freddie Gray, but started way before that and put them in a position to be ready to respond when their city demanded change and wanted change. So plug into what Adam got going on. He's a good dude. Very solid. Appreciate you chiming in on this particular segment. I'm hoping you stick around. I hope everybody stick around because we got a little bit more to talk about. I want to throw it over to George Lee real quick, aka the Conscious Lee. Talk to us about your chop for today, my brother.
Man, so today we're getting into the culture chop, subtitled as the Indige chop or Indigenation. You know what I'm saying? Indigenation.
You almost fucked that.
You feel me? Oh yeah, I did. Hey, but listen, I caught it real quick, so we good. So we in this thing, man. I know that most people don't. I feel like sometimes forget that Native Americans or indigenous people of this country are the first inhabitants, and I think a lot of us participate in what we're gonna call an erasure of indigenous people, indigenous culture, indigenous heritage, right? With that being said, the current political climate right now has been calling for a lot of statues to be taken down. You know what I mean? And as of recent, I've come across some specific history that entails Mount Rushmore. You know what I'm saying? We know that a lot of these Confederate statues have been taken down. And what we know is that contrary to popular belief, probably the American flag probably got a little bit more blood on it than the Confederate flag could ever dream of. But we're gonna save that conversation for a whole other thing. And I guess that's probably why I'll be on the list 2% shit like that.
Right.
But getting to this conversation about Mount Rushmore and indigenation. Before the president's face was carved into Mount Rushmore, it was called the Six Grandfathers, a part of the sacred Black Hills of the Dakota tribe. The U.S. government seized the land illegally in 1877 after gold had been discovered there. President Grant secretly ordered the army not to protect local tribes as the bounty hunters collected up to $300 for each Native American killed. The carving of the four presidents into the hill took place in the 1920s. And, some argued that it was partly funded by the Ku Klux Klan. My question to y'all is, with the current climate of all of the historical Confederate statues being taken down, how should we take this information about Mount Rushmore?
Now, before we get into that, like we said, the man Adam is on the East Coast. It's late over there for the boy. He be putting in the work. You know what I'm saying? So let's let that man get some rest.
Yeah.
Y'all say shout out to Adam again. Follow the man at Smart Black Man. You know what I'm saying? Go to the webpage, donate. LBSbaltimore.com, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Appreciate y'all.
LBSbaltimore.com. Y'all make sure y'all support. It's Black people putting in the work, man.
Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you.
All right, bro. Be easy.
Love you, Adam. Peace out, bro.
Peace.
Help on the side.
The Mount Rushmore. What was the specific question you asked us in relationship to Mount Rushmore?
The question is that given the current climate of how we're taking down Confederate statues and statues that are caught up in like this controversial history, how should we take this information about Mount Rushmore?
I think I think that's gonna be a real test. Cause you already got let's not act like Donald Trump didn't pass some executive order in an attempt to protect certain landmarks or statues, right? So knocking down some statues like on a local level is one thing, but when you start to get into monuments to whiteness and white supremacy, that's when you start having another problem, because it's like, yeah, y'all need like okay, the mayor of whatever little town will let them tear that up. All right, let's not get some bad press by defending an old racist, right? The government right now don't give a fuck about bad press. Donald Trump will sit there and say, "It ain't no way in hell I will let y'all touch that those heads." He probably, but Donald Trump probably can't even name them niggas off the top of his head. But he will guarantee that it ain't no way in hell that you. Who is it? Y'all not gonna touch. I think Benjamin Franklin is up there. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the type of mind. That's the type of president we working with. You feel me? So hell no. Like yeah, ain't shit about to happen.
I don't think anything is gonna change. But what I think is very kind of frustrating and interesting about it is that, like, I don't know if a Democratic president, because I don't know that there is any presidential regime that would ever green light that shit changing. Right? They have to be beholden. In order to take the office, they have to be beholden to the sacredness of the presidency. And so I don't see them in a world where we already don't treat indigenous people right. And we'll talk about a lot of the ways that that's happening probably later on in this segment, but that they would be willing to kowtow to any demands for, like, I don't see even a Democratic president being like, yeah, some things have to change. We got to change Mount Rushmore. Niggas is not going to go that far. Like, I'm not willing to believe it. The entire Washington Mall needs to change. If we talk about all the people who had slaves, who were problematic, who have stuff, monuments named after them. And so that's why they're allowing these little small cities to kind of have their own, you know, jurisdiction over what they decide to do in their cities. Because I know they know on a federal level that you're not finna rewrite American history over everybody.
Not at all. Y'all ain't going that far.
Question real quick, and y'all in the comments tell me, y'all seen the movie? One of my favorite movies is Richie Rich. Y'all seen like the newer kind of the 90s version of Richie Rich with Macaulay Culkin? They had machine where they was kind of building their own little Mount Rushmore because they was that rich, like the mama, daddy, and then
with the laser,
was like they shot it at the end. It was a whole battle scene with the laser.
Yeah, they was using it to fight. Yeah,
I was one of them, man. That's what I want to be able to take from a distance to Mount Rushmore. Like I'm sick of. I don't want to ask for permission. I want to go the long way. I just need somebody to take a laser and like chisel out.
Yeah, man.
We talking about colonizers.
I want to holler at Lakota. I want to holler at Lakota Nation. Hey, man, what y'all want up here, man? What y'all want up here? I know y'all want this, but y'all want up here instead.
You know what I'm saying?
Hey, but just to add in, but because Toya said something about that she don't think that people would change, that she don't think that federally it would change, like rewrite some history or whatever. Well, what we know is that last week Supreme Court said that much of eastern Oklahoma remained in Indian territory. And when I say much of eastern Oklahoma, I'm talking about like majority of East Oklahoma.
Yeah, that was big.
The city of
actually, I'm gonna pull it up as we talk about it.
I'm reading right now. The Supreme Court said Thursday a large swath of.
I want to show the map though. I just want to pull up the map.
Yeah, put it up. I say. Supreme Court said that Thursday that the large swath of Eastern Oklahoma remains an American Indian reservation, a decision with potential implications for nearly 2 million residents and one of the most significant victories for tribal rights for tribal rights in years. The land issue contains much of Tulsa, the state's second largest city. The question for the country, for the court, was whether Congress officially eliminated Muskogee Creek Nation Reservation in Oklahoma to become a state in 1907, and then a 5-4 decision invoking the country's long history mistreating Native Americans. The court said that we hold the government to its word and that the land Congress promised the Creek Nation to stand in Indian land. Now, this is why this is relevant to the Mount Rushmore. When I did a little research on the Mount Rushmore, I found that in 1868, there was a treaty that promised the Lakota territory, included the Black Hills, where the mountain is at, that Black Hills in perpetuity, that's the word they use, in perpetuity, you know what I'm saying, lasted as long, and pretty much was given to the Lakota Nation up until the 1870s when they found the gold on their land. You know what I'm saying? As y'all see right here is the Supreme Court decision on Tuesday, which was a few Tuesdays ago, found that the entire red part is still on Indian territory, still Indian reservation land. Specifically, that was given to the Creek Nation in this treaty of 1868.
So this is my question, and because you in Oklahoma, George, what are they saying is going to be the result of that? Because think about that, like that's this, because you know they was having the entire conversation about water rights You know what I'm saying? Like who
when I
owned
first got to Oklahoma, that definitely was the biggest thing, water rights. Yeah.
Right. So now that like the highest court in the land has decided that this is damn near a third of all of eastern Oklahoma. Well, pretty much almost all of eastern Oklahoma, a third of all of Oklahoma, maybe even more than that, because the panhandle ain't really shit.
Yeah, ain't nothing there.
So really damn near like half of all of Oklahoma where people are populated is Indian land. So in terms of how that land is used, the contracts that exist on that land, you know what I'm saying? Like who has the rights to be able to sell and to buy? Like what is the conversation on the ground in Oklahoma in terms of what that means for the like Oklahoma communities, like people in Oklahoma?
Well, here right now, the biggest thing that come down to this new ruling is a lot of jurisdictional issues. So based off people that in caught in caught cases in that little red part of Oklahoma, it's coming down to, is that supposed to be under the jurisdiction of the reservation, or is that the jurisdiction of Oklahoma State? You know what I'm saying? As a matter of fact, I read to you said that the dissent led by Chief Justice John Roberts warned a significant upheaval in the criminal justice system in other areas of the government, such as taxing and zoning. But state tribal leaders downplayed those concerns and said they're negotiating an agreement to address jurisdictional issues. So it's pretty much coming down to a lot of imposing taxes, a lot of zone laws, a lot of regulations, like pretty much trying to figure out, does that fall under the native law, native sovereignty, or does that fall up under, you know what I'm saying, Oklahoma state law? You know what I'm saying? So they trying to figure out if it's a shared commitment, maintain public safety and long-term economic prosperity. For the statement was under Creek, Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, and Seminole nations in Seminole nations. You know what I'm saying? So they're really trying to figure out now what this means in terms of jurisdiction to prosecute, the ability to prosecute under state convictions, and if it must be tried in federal court.
Before we get into that specifically, because that's extreme. Because I know it was a Supreme Court case where somebody was on death row and they were trying to get off because of that. But I think Justine's comment is interesting. She says, because you know that white history will be there, but we need to give the better representing and knowing about more about every part and people. So it's like, what's our relationality to these communities? I mean, because we see here, we have like a similar dynamic, like a part of the colonization of this country. Half of it was, I mean, I'm saying half, but we know that a large part of it was the colonization and the subjugation of Native American tribes or indigenous tribes, and then it's the enslavement of Black people. So like we exist at the foot of the foundation of this country. You know what I'm saying? The subjugation of our people, and in terms of how we should relate to it, like information like this coming out, how we should relate to the fact that we talk a lot about how we as a people, as Black people, as Black people, how we were hit hard by Corona, but then you look at the numbers of indigenous communities and how they were devastated by the coronavirus. As Black people, what should our orientation be to these indigenous communities, especially given how we saying that these statues, we tearing them down, colonial, or these structures of colonialism, we're challenging, we're even using the phrase colonizer. You know what I'm saying? So then how should we orient ourselves to these indigenous peoples and movements and social issues, etc.?
Well, I think one of the first things is to recognize and develop a language and a vocabulary the same way we're trying to develop a vocabulary for things like anti-Blackness and white supremacy, instead of just calling it, the vanilla version of racism, being more specific and particular about that. I think in the same ways, we need to be specific and particular about the violence that happened to Black people, right? We were colonized. I think there's differences, right? There's a type of colonization that happened to us where there was an acquisition of goods and resources. We were the good and the resource that was taken from a land and taken and dispersed in other places for the benefit and for the expansion of a colonial project, right? So we were very much colonized people in relation to indigenous people, which is why we should be tapped into the way that colonization works, is that they experienced settler colonization, right? Where the resource acquisition, the taking, the pillaging, all of those things happened, and they shit got took, and their culture got erased, and it got shifted and changed and overwhelmingly influenced by the presence of white people. And so when we see colonization versus settler colonization and the distinctions, but also the similarities between them in terms of our histories and our legacies, that should start to bring us a little bit closer to recognizing the unique position that we're in America, right? We are not colonizers, right? We can't be colonizers, I think, by bloodline, but we very much can participate in colonization.
We perpetuate it. Yeah, we perpetuate it.
Perpetuate it the same way Black people can be anti-Black. Right, the same way they can participate.
We can do that shit. That could be us.
We can very muchly participate in colonization. We can have colonial practices, and so decolonizing our mindsets is more than just a witty line from Black Panther colonizer. Right, it's really a relationship that she was demonstrating to white people that is very similar to the way Indigenous people understand. In some ways, there's lots of shades of differences, but also shades of similarities in those same positionalities. So we got to be tapped in. We got to mature our language and the understanding of our history, right? There has to be a graduation of the knowledge.
George, as our resident Oklahoma nigga, you said, because your ass went from Texas to Oklahoma, and you have been in Oklahoma.
Yeah,
nigga.
Hey man, what I think is about our relationship as Black people is to think about the longevity of Native heritage, Native culture, Native bloodline, Native language, stuff like that. I think that me living in Oklahoma for the past 10 years, I live around some tribes that literally got enough people that's living in their tribe left, you know what I'm saying, to count on one hand. So every time an elder dies from the coronavirus or whatever, literally another living library goes, you know what I'm saying, down to the ground, and literally the risk of their language being able to carry on, their culture to be able to carry on,
that's one less person to be able to teach.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. Like all that. In too, it's like I literally know like a Navajo Nation, even though it's not in Oklahoma right now, I seen a special on them. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Literally them talking about how because the health structure, the healthcare structure in most tribes are usually underfunded, this coronavirus is hitting them that much harder. And because the literal survival of they, you know what I'm saying, culture was already kind of being in jeopardy, the coronavirus just kind of exacerbates that a little bit more.
Exacerbates it.
Yeah, I was trying to say it again, but
yeah. What's your brother?
Hey, you know what? Y'all want to hear something? Y'all want to hear something funny though? My wife, when I be talking to George on the phone, like I have him on speakerphone or whatever, like my wife would sit there and look at me like just in awe. And once I get off the phone with the nigga, she'd be like, "You could understand what he was saying."
Hey, people do my wife like that too. It's funny. People do my wife like that too.
It's like I speak George Leonese. You feel me? But I feel y'all though in terms of, you know what I'm saying, like that relationship, because we could actually serve to emulate the relationship that like elders like that natives have with their elders. You know what I'm saying? Because we have that. Like we talk about constantly how the civil rights movement wasn't that long ago. The Civil Rights Act wasn't that long ago. So most of, like, especially the millennials, like our grandparents, like we getting older now. See what I'm saying? Like our grandparents and our great grandparents, like my granny, rest her soul, she went to the white school. You feel me? Like, and I never forget when I asked her, Granny, if I married a white woman, would you come to my wedding? She said emphatically no. You know what I'm saying?
To the now.
You feel me? It's like, so when we talk about losing these libraries, that's the relationship. Like, yeah, when our grandparents, there's the affect, there's the emotional connections that we have, but at the same time, like we've been missing out on getting like the real raw. Like now that Black history and all of that shit is so important to us now as people who study it, and you know, people that dedicate their lives to making sure that the younger generation have that. We creating a closer relationality to Indigenous communities would help us in understanding the value of our elders and what they represent and the information that they have to provide. On top of the fact that we have a community that's really the only community that can relate to us for real. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a difference in how we, you know what I'm saying, was fucked over. It's a huge difference in how we was fucked over. But and the only people that could sit at the bar and be like, white people, Indigenous people could be like white people. You feel me? Because nobody else has had that. Like the Chinese people could be mad at white people, but they get rich with white people. Same thing with every other, you know what I'm saying? I mean, yeah. Now Mexicans is getting it. You feel me? When you think about the generation of orphans that's gonna grow up to tell that story, like we sitting on it now, right? But it's generations of orphans that's gonna grow up to be able to tell that story. But that's why we need to have this closer relationship, because nobody else really understands it, like other than these people. You feel me? And it's important that, like Toya say, we got to watch how we move, because we don't want to reinforce the shit that we learn from whiteness in a way that damages and gets in the way and impedes, you know what I'm saying, indigenous communities. You feel me?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, this my last question has to do with this new name change that they about to have with the Washington Redskins. They finally determined and decided that their name was, you know, a little inappropriate and outdated. So now they're about to change it. My question to y'all though is, should the name still be, you know, something tied to Native American culture, or should they just go on and just go to some complete like what should their new name be?
I'm a fan of a lot of the jersey mock-ups and a lot of the various attempts to keep the colorway, but to change the approach. And I am the biggest fan of the Washington Red Tails, right? Which is a name that commemorates the Tuskegee Airmen. It doesn't necessarily tip a hat to indigenous folks, but I think that also here's the bigger question about why I'm not sure we should change it to something else like that is representative of indigenous people. And that's because, as you know, Dominique wears his Chiefs cap, and as we think about the Braves, and as we think about the Black Hawks, I don't think we've agreed or heard from indigenous folks about what is or is not an appropriate way to revere.
Agreed.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm not about to be like, so this is what it should be instead, and this is what it should be. I think that might be a step backwards. Instead, I think that maybe we can use this opportunity.
Shout out to Chris X.
Exactly. Shout out to Chris X. But we can celebrate some of the Black people that play and participate in the National Football League, and start to really put and highlight something that should be remembered in American history, like the Red Tails. So that's my take.
Yeah, I mean, I think I really ain't got no room to talk. Y'all see my hat?
Exactly.
So I'm not even gonna be a hypocrite. I mean, because you know, I definitely, especially with what we talking about in terms of relationality, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's certain levels of like that settler colonialism that niggas gotta kind of detach themselves from, because you start to, it's certain levels of like settler colonialism with like stealing like this imagery and how important that is, but then at the same time, so we did this tribalism of, you know, I'm from Kansas City, and as a part of Kansas City culture is the Kansas City Chiefs. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so it's. I mean, then we just want a fucking Super Bowl.
I mean, okay. So how do y'all feel about the tiebreaker between that being like terms of endearment versus very clearly derogatory, like violent names? Like,
you know who breaks that tie? Indigenous communities.
Yeah.
I mean, but I tell you what, every time I look at it, an ESPN post or a Bleacher Report tweet or something, because I follow a lot of sports media, so like the major people having these conversations, it's indigenous people in the comment like, I'm indigenous and I don't care. This is dumb. Let's get off. And when we think about it, you're having a lot of, it depends on who you talk to. I think like a lot of Black folk, a lot of queer folk, I don't think indigenous people agree about how to deal with a lot of this stuff, because a lot of people like
same thing with Black people probably. Same like to say like how we feel about nigga and how we feel about Black, and yeah.
It's just like there are bigger fish to fry. This is largely insignificant. Man, ain't nothing wrong with the name in the first place. And so it's hard to figure out. I don't think there is a monolithic agreement on how they want to be represented in American culture, or if they want to be. And I think they don't want American culture to exist. Like Adam,
I know my only thing about it.
Exist.
Yeah. So that my answer. Yeah. I mean, in closing, you feel me on this Indigenous chop. I guess my only thing about
Indigenous chop.
Indigenous chop. I done remixed it 3 times now already. Now.
Yeah. It's love.
My last things I'll say about it is I wish that people fought as hard for indigenous rights as they do to use indigenous people as symbols and mascots in Halloween costumes.
That's fine.
You know what I'm saying? I think that regardless of what you think about the mascots or think about the indigenous symbols, I feel like you got to be able to recognize how it's not reciprocated energy for being able to advocate for the general welfare of indigenous peoples when it comes to, you know what I'm saying, being able to use them and abuse them however way people want to do, you know what I'm saying, in terms of using a culture for their own likeliness and not attaching it to the people in the community.
Jackie said something interesting. I want to get some comments in on this indigenous thing. And I had one more thing I wanted to add. Jackie says, I think red skin is unique.
And I got some breaking news I want to get into before we close the show. I got some breaking news, but go ahead, tell you.
No.
I think red skin is uniquely sensitive because of the history of paying bounty to people who brought back pieces of red skin. So the etymology, a lot of these terms, the breakdown, the history of a lot of these terms is where we start to get into the symbolism of it and what it starts to mean when you say it, when you evoke a lot of those terms and phrases. And that's what has to start being important. I, for one, would just want to go on record and say, as I walk around this America, I would be excited while we're pulling down monuments to start really replacing a lot of what we see around here with the history of indigenous, right? Half the cities and states we live in, Iowa, Kansas, right, Minnesota, these are all indigenous words, right, that we don't even think about our language and vocabulary. And I would love to see bigger and better monuments replaced where we just put indigenous shit everywhere. We in a country that
into from this article I'm reading right now with the thing, it said that parts of Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas is really supposed to be a part of reservation Trail of Tears land, but
white people, right?
Hey, I ain't saying nothing. White people. Damo said
it. Hey, let me say this though. I got some breaking news. It has just been reported. All right. Nick Cannon has been dropped by Viacom and CBS for statements that he made on his podcast about black people being the true Israelites, true Jews, and statements that he said in referring to white people as more like animals and having a deficiency. And so because of and this is a interview that he did on his Cannon Class podcast with Professor Griff, where he made some particular statements about white people that have been taken by Viacom to be considered as anti-Semitic hate speech. Yeah, and he has been dropped from Viacom, CBS, no more Wilding Out. And that's upsetting because you know what I'm saying, that nigga was, I don't watch Wilding Out, but he was definitely giving a lot of niggas, you know what I'm saying, a plan. He made a lot of niggas rich. He was putting a lot of niggas on. That was one thing I respected about what he did.
So out here, on one of the radio stations or whatever, I wonder if they're gonna drop him from that because he on a whole morning show in LA.
Yeah, y'all know how I felt about that.
And that's iHeartRadio. No, that's not iHeartRadio. That's not iHeartRadio.
Y'all know how I felt about the Hebrew Israelite shit. I've been telling y'all for years, man. Y'all gonna get yourself in trouble trying to spew that Judaism in blackface, talking shit about you.
And this is the second. This is the second nigga.
This is the second nigga. Copying and pasting and repeating what white conservative. No, Toy, you said this. Once you start sounding too much like the white conservatives and the white supremacists, man, it's like, what are you saying?
But George, I've been saying that. Remember the George Soros conversations?
I mean, we had a whole conversation. Who was it? Angela Day? No, yeah, it was Angela Davis who was confused. Anti-Semitic a while ago. Didn't we have a whole conversation about?
Oh, and LeBron. They call LeBron.
Oh, LeBron.
What are the older episodes? We had an old episode where we were saying, do they use anti-Semitism as a way to call black people racist?
Definitely.
Yeah, we had a whole man. Hey, so y'all be on. We're gonna do a flashback this week. It may be like a flashback Thursday. Matter of fact,
because you know what it was.
LeBron
was quoting that 21 Savage.
21 Savage, yeah. Yeah, but see now you got what's the name in the news? We just had
Deshaun Jackson and Steven Jackson backed it up.
And Steven Jackson, and so they called both of them anti-Semitic, called them hypocrites.
Then Nick Cannon called himself one to, you know what I'm saying, back it up and wanted to defend it, and you know what I mean? Like, all right, man.
He went further than backing it up and defending it. Like he literally went as far as
shit to it, huh?
Yeah, he was pushing it like they're savages. White people are beasts, savages. So yeah, Nick Cannon has been dropped by Viacom CBS. That's breaking news on the Chop Up.
Well,
it's actually breaking news off Vlad TV, but
yeah, definitely, man. Yeah, man. Well, that's all I got to say. That's all we got to say today. We're gonna. Hey, as a matter of fact, we put today here. Today Tuesday. Man, we might, we never know. Man, we might see y'all again on Thursday. Either way it go, we see y'all again on Monday.
We'll see y'all probably again close to the Monday or so. I love you all so much. My Thursday is a little tied up, but I love.
Yeah, my Thursday is tied up too. I don't know why I'm capping.
I want to set a debate up. You feel me? I still owe some niggas some work. So check it out. We are still doing quarantine debates because you motherfuckers should still be quarantined. Goddamn.
Okay, cuss them out.
Okay, yeah, cuss them out then. Yeah, man, I'm gonna holler at y'all, man. My wife out here, man. I'm hungry, man. What's up?
Oh yeah, man. Go ahead. Well,
I was already eating chips and stuff. You feel me?
So
you got on me like this is the chop up, the chisel chop.
Yeah.
Hey, and too, you know what it brings me to think of? I want you to get out, but